Have you ever felt like the world around you is trying to mold you into something you are not? Like every rule, every expectation is pushing you in a direction that does not quite feel right. That is exactly what happens to Stephen Dedalus in A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. James Joyce does not just tell us a story. He takes us into Stephens's mind, showing us his thoughts, his struggles, his desires, and even his doubts. It is not just about growing up. It is about realizing that the world is full of forces, that is religion, family, tradition, that try to shape who we are. And Stephen wants to escape. He wants to be free. But we all know that breaking free is not easy. James Joyce's A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man was published in 1916, and it is a landmark novel that encapsulates the essence of the modern age. Unlike Victorian novels that focused on society, A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man shifts the focus to the individual's inner life, making it one of the first truly modernist novels. It is basically a coming-of-age story about Stephen Dedalus, how he grows up, how he struggles with society's expectations, and eventually decides to break free and become an artist. But it is more than just a story about growing up. It is about how an artist is made, what shapes their thinking, their struggles, and their ultimate decision to live for art. Now, what makes this novel so different is the way Joyce writes this story. Instead of a simple, clear narrative, he takes us inside Stephens's mind. We don't just see what happens, we feel his thoughts, his emotions, his confusions. Joyce uses stream of consciousness, which means that the writing often flows like real thoughts do. That is, jumping from one idea to another, and sometimes they are fragmented, sometimes poetic. This was not how most books were written back then. Traditional novels had a clear plot and structured storytelling, but Joyce breaks those rules. He does not just tell us about Stephens's growth, he makes us experience it. And that is why this novel is considered a masterpiece of modernist literature. It captures not just a story, but the messy, complicated process of becoming who you are meant to be. So let's first discuss the background of modern age. The novel was written at the beginning of the 20th century, a period of great change. The modern age was marked by the decline of traditional values and the questioning of religious and social structures. It was marked by a shift from collective societal narratives to individual consciousness. It was marked by experimentation in literature, art, and philosophy, breaking away from traditional storytelling. And it was the period of the rise of stream of consciousness writing, and this aimed to capture the flow of human thought in real time. As I have already discussed, Victorian novels like those of Charles Dickens and George Eliot focused on depicting society, class, and moral lessons. Modernist novels like Joyce's novels focused on the internal struggles of individuals. Joyce, through this novel, presents a new way of storytelling, one that mirrors the fragmented, complex nature of human consciousness. So, one of the most striking features of this novel is its narrative style. So, as I have told, Joyce uses stream of consciousness, a technique that allows readers to experience the thoughts of a character in real time without a clear, structured order. And this makes the novel feel more intimate and realistic as it captures Stephens's mind as he grows. Another technique used is interior monologue, where Stephens's inner thoughts are presented directly to the readers without the author's interference. The novel's language grows with Stephen, and this is one of the fascinating aspects of this novel. Joyce mirrors Stephen's mental growth through the evolution of language. For example, during Stephens's childhood, the language is very simple and fragmented. This reflects a child's perspective. During adolescence, the sentences become more structured, and this shows Stephens's growing awareness of the world. During his adulthood, the writing becomes more sophisticated, more philosophical, and more poetic, and this reflects his maturity as an artist. This whole transformation is more evident in the way Stephen engages with philosophy and aesthetics. And there's a part where he quotes Aristotle and Thomas Aquinas, developing his own artistic theory. He writes, "Beauty is the splendor of truth." For Stephen, art must be independent and the artist must be free from religious, political, and societal constraints. Now let's discuss Stephen's development, that is the different phases of his life. The novel follows Stephen through 5 stages, and each stage represents a key phase of his growth. The first phase is his early childhood. The novel begins with the earliest memories of Stephen Dedalus, a young boy in the late 19th century Ireland. He recalls fragments of his infancy, including a story his father tells him about a macaw and a boy named Baby Toko. These fragmented memories reflect the innocence and simplicity of his early consciousness. Now, as Stephen grows, he attends Clongowesford College, a Jesuit boarding school, and here he experiences homesickness, bullying, and a sense of isolation. During this particular phase, a pivotal moment occurs when he is unfairly punished by Father Dolan, and this leads Stephen to bravely confront the rector. This particular act boosts his confidence and marks the beginning of his questioning of authority. The second phase is during his adolescence. Stephen's family faces financial difficulties, leading to a decline in their social status. They move from their comfortable home in Blackrock to less affluent areas in Dublin. But despite these challenges, Stephen excels academically and transfers to Belvedere College, another Jesuit institution, on a scholarship. During this phase, he becomes aware of his budding sexuality, experiencing inner turmoil between his desires and the strict Catholic morals instilled in him. He begins to distance himself from his family, feeling a growing sense of alienation. The next phase is his religious crisis. Stephen's indulgence in sinful behaviors, particularly his visits to prostitutes, leads to overwhelming guilt and a fear of eternal damnation. At a religious retreat at school, the sermons on sin, judgment, and hell resonate deeply with him. And terrified by vivid descriptions of hellfire and eternal suffering, Stephen undergoes a profound spiritual crisis. In an attempt to seek redemption, he confesses his sins and immerses himself in rigorous religious devotion, adhering strictly to Catholic practices and disciplines. The next phase is very important because it is the phase of his artistic awakening. Despite his intense piety, Stephen feels an internal conflict between his religious obligations and his yearning for artistic and personal freedom. He is offered the opportunity to join the Jesuit order, but he declines, realizing that such a life would constrain his creative spirit. An important moment occurs when he encounters a girl wading in the sea, and her beauty and grace inspire an epiphany, awakening in him a profound appreciation for art and beauty. This particular experience solidifies his resolve to pursue a life dedicated to artistic expression, free from societal and religious constraints. The next is his university life. Stephen enrolls at University College Dublin, where he delves into philosophy, language, and aesthetics. He engages in deep discussions with peers, particularly Cranley, about art, politics, and religion. Stephen formulates his own theories on art, heavily influenced by thinkers like Aristotle and Aquinas. He posits that true art is a reflection of the artist's soul and must be created free from external pressures. And throughout this period, Stephen becomes increasingly detached from his family, religion, and national identity, viewing them as impediments of his artistic growth. And throughout this period, Stephen becomes detached from his family, religion, and national identity, viewing them as impediments to his artistic growth. In his journal entries, he expresses his determination to leave Ireland and forge his own path as an artist, embracing the role of the mythical Daedalus to fly above his constraints that bind him. Now, a crucial element in Joyce's writing is the idea of epiphany. That is a moment of sudden insight or sudden realization. Throughout the novel, Stephen experiences several epiphanies that shape his identity and artistic vision. As a child, he realizes the beauty of language when he hears the word macaw in a story that his father tells him. In adolescence, he has a religious epiphany, fearing sin and punishment, leading him to a brief period of intense devotion. As a young adult, he has a defining artistic epiphany when he sees a girl standing in the water, inspiring him to embrace beauty and art instead of religion. And at the end of the novel, we see that he has a final epiphany and he must leave Ireland to become an artist free from societal and religious constraints. Now over here, another important aspect that needs to be discussed is the role of woman in Stephens's life. And women in this particular novel are not just characters. They represent different forces in Stephens's life. Some pull him towards tradition and duty, and there are some women who awaken his artistic and emotional self. For example, his mother. One of the most constant figures in Stephens's life is his mother. She is deeply religious, and for most of the novel, she wants Stephen to follow the Catholic path. She represents comfort, home, and the expectations placed upon him. There is a particular moment in the novel where Stephen refuses to take Easter communion, and this deeply upsets his mother. It is not just about religion, it is about how Stephen is slowly pulling away from the world he was born into. She does not argue with him directly, but her silent disappointment speaks volumes. She is not a controlling or forceful character, but she represents something even stronger, the quiet weight of tradition. So even when Stephen decides to leave Ireland at the end of the novel, it is very clear that his mother's sadness affects him. But he knows that he can't stay just to make her happy. The next important figure is Ellen Vance. Ellen Vance is a girl Stephen admires when he is very young. She is a Protestant, and that alone makes her feel unreachable. Stephen's family jokes about how he might marry a Protestant girl one day, but at the time, it's just a childish fantasy. But this moment is important because it is one of the first times Stephen feels that love, especially love outside societal norms, it's something that is controlled by others. Even as a child, he begins to understand that religion and society place limits on who he can love. Then prostitutes play an important role. As Stephen grows older, he struggles with his desires. When he is a teenager, he starts visiting prostitutes, and for a while, he gives in completely to his physical urges. This is a turning point in his life. He does not just feel pleasure, he feels shame, overwhelming guilt that crashes him. And this guilt leads him to a period of extreme religious devotion, where he tries to erase his sins by dedicating himself to the Catholic morals. But eventually he realizes that living in fear of sin is not truly living. This internal struggle between desire and religious guilt is something that follows him throughout the novel. The next important figure is Emma. Emma is the girl Stephen admires from a distance. He writes poetry about her, dreams about her, and sees her as this almost mystical figure, pure, beautiful, and perfect. Their interactions are few, and yet he places so much meaning into them. This is important because it shows how Stephen's idea of love is more about imagination than reality. Emma is not a real person to him. She is an idea, an inspiration, that something that exists in his mind rather than in his actual life. And later in the novel, we see when he finally talks to her more openly, he realizes that she is not some unreachable goddess. She is just a person, and this realization is a part of his artistic growth. He learns that beauty is not just about idealization. It is about seeing things as they truly are. Another important figure is the girl at the shore. One of the most powerful moments in this particular novel happens when Stephen sees a girl standing in the water at the beach. She is not someone he knows, but the way she stands there, the way the light hits her, it feels like a vision. And this moment is a true epiphany for Stephen. He suddenly understands that beauty exists outside of religion, outside of rules, outside of guilt. This girl isn't a temptation or sin. She's just beautiful, and that is enough. This moment confirms for Stephen that he must dedicate himself to art. It is not about following the expectations of society, family, or religion. It is about seeing the world through his own eyes, creating something new, and embracing life without shame or fear. So these women are not just people in Stephen's life, they are reflections of his inner conflicts. And each one, in her own way, pushes him forward on his journey towards self-discovery. So by the end of the novel, we see that Stephen has made his choice. He will leave everything behind, his family, his country, his religion, to forge his own path as an artist. But the influences of these women will remain with him. shaping the way he sees the world and the art he will create. So Joyce does not just present women in a one-dimensional way. They are not just love interests or background characters. They are created in the very fabric of Stephenson's journey. So when we read a portrait of the artist as a young man, we are not just reading about Stephenson's journey. We are witnessing the forces that shape all of us: family, love, desire, guilt, and the search for freedom. So this is not just a novel, it is an experience. Because Joyce does not just tell us what it is like to grow up and find your identity. He makes us feel it. And that is why this novel is still one of the most influential works of literature today. Because in the end, isn't that what we all go through in some way? Trying to figure out who we are, what we believe in, and what kind of life we want to create. So Stephenson's journey is not just his own journey. It is a reflection of the struggles that many of us face. And that is what makes this novel so timeless. So what are your views on this particular novel? Do let me know in the comments. And if you think that this video has helped you in any way or the other, do like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.